Have you started noticing quiet changes in someone you love? Small things that don't seem urgent, but something deep inside tells you they matter. Maybe their clothes are fitting looser. Maybe they're sleeping more. Maybe they seem distant even when they're right beside you. At first you tell yourself it's just part of getting older, but what if it's something more? Most people believe that when the end of life comes, it comes suddenly. One moment everything is fine. The next, they're gone. But the truth is, the body rarely works that way. More often, it whispers. It gives subtle, almost invisible signs that the final chapter may be near, sometimes a full year before it arrives. And because those signs are so gentle, so easy to dismiss, most families don't recognize them. Until it's too late to prepare. Too late to be fully present. Too late to make those last memories count. In this video, we're going to explore 5 quiet but powerful signs that often appear in the final year of life. Signs that can help you understand what's happening not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. When you know what to look for, you can show up in a way that brings comfort, dignity, and peace, not just to the one you love, but to yourself as well. So stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn today won't just help you spot the signs. It may help you walk this sacred path with more compassion, less fear, and the confidence to make every remaining moment truly matter. Sign number 1, significant weight loss. The first sign is one of the easiest to miss, and yet one of the most telling: unintentional weight loss. It often starts subtly, a belt that suddenly needs a tighter notch. A favorite sweater that now hangs a little too loosely. A once hearty appetite that fades into polite nibbles or skipped meals. In isolation, these changes may seem like nothing more than a phase. After all, don't our tastes and routines shift as we age? But when you step back and look closer, you begin to see what's really happening. The body is quietly retreating. Unexplained weight loss in older adults is not just about numbers on a scale. It's a signal, a whisper from within that the body is no longer processing food the way it once did. Muscles begin to waste away. Nutrients are no longer absorbed with efficiency. Even the act of digestion becomes a task too demanding for a system that's slowly winding down. For families, this change is often brushed aside. They're just not as hungry anymore. They've always been a light eater. They're trying to eat healthier, but there's a difference between eating differently and being unable to nourish the body. Weight loss, especially when it occurs without trying, often points to deeper issues. Chronic conditions like cancer, heart failure, kidney disease, or even cognitive decline and depression. These illnesses may remain hidden from view until the body can no longer maintain its normal rhythm. What appears as reduced appetite may in fact be a sign that the body is preparing for its final season. What's most painful is watching someone you love shrink. Not just physically, but emotionally. As strength fades, so too can confidence. Tasks that were once easy, getting up from a chair, walking to the kitchen, climbing the stairs, become hurdles, and with every pound, lost independence slips further away. Many families respond with love, of course, favorite foods, extra snacks, protein drinks. We try to fix it, to reverse the decline. But sometimes, when the body has already made its decision, these well-meaning efforts only bring frustration for both the caregiver and the one being cared for. This is where a quiet shift must happen. Instead of focusing on calories and portion sizes, we must begin to focus on comfort, on dignity, on listening to what the body is saying, even when it doesn't speak out loud. Gentle foods, hydration, small bites, shared over soft conversation, presence, not pressure. If someone you love is losing weight without trying, and especially if they seem more tired or less interested in food, don't ignore it. Don't chalk it up to just aging. See it for what it may be: a message, a doorway into a more sacred chapter, one that invites us to stop rushing, stop fixing, and start simply being, because in this season, love isn't found in the meals we try to force, but in the moments we choose to share. Sign number 2, extreme fatigue and weakness. After the weight begins to fall away, something else sets in quiet: persistent, and harder to name at first. It's not just tiredness. It's something deeper, a kind of exhaustion that doesn't lift even after hours of rest. This is the second sign: profound fatigue and weakness. You might notice it in how they move through the day. They sit a little longer in their favorite chair before getting up. Their steps become slower, smaller. They abandon familiar routines not because they've forgotten them, but because they no longer have the strength to carry them out. At first, you might assume they just didn't sleep well. Maybe they've been under the weather. But over time, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. A once vibrant person begins choosing rest over activity, silence over conversation, stillness over movement. And it's not because they want to give up, it's because their body is asking them to. This kind of fatigue isn't fixed by naps or more sleep. It isn't laziness or boredom. It's the body's way of conserving the last of its energy. When major organs begin to slow, the body shifts into preservation mode. Oxygen doesn't circulate as efficiently. The heart no longer pumps with the vigor it once had. Muscles grow weaker, and even holding a fork or brushing their hair may become a challenge. And just like weight loss, this fatigue reaches further than the physical. It begins to pull at the spirit. For someone who's always been independent, always taken pride in doing for themselves, this quiet loss of strength can be heartbreaking. You see it in their eyes, the frustration, the shame, the quiet apologies for needing help. They may start withdrawing not out of disinterest, but to avoid the embarrassment of feeling like a burden. As a loved one, it's hard to witness. You want to encourage them, to push them, to tell them, "Come on, let's go for a walk. Let's get you moving again." But this season requires a different kind of strength, yours. The strength to stop pushing and start listening. The strength to accept that rest may no longer be a temporary stop, but a destination in itself. This is where we learn to meet them with gentleness instead of resistance. To offer warmth without pressure. To sit beside them rather than try to pull them forward. If your loved one seems more tired than usual, sleeps more than before, or struggles with basic tasks that were once second nature, take it seriously. These are not just signs of age, they're signs of a body stepping quietly toward its final threshold. But in this slowing down, there is still something sacred. A space for quiet connection, for stillness shared, for love that doesn't rush, but lingers. Because in the end, the greatest gift we can offer is not to make them stronger, but to make them feel safe, seen and never alone. Sign number 3, cognitive confusion and withdrawal. After the body begins to slow, the mind often follows, but not in the ways we expect. It doesn't always come as a sudden forgetfulness or obvious memory lapse. Sometimes it begins with something as simple as a long pause in the middle of a sentence, a repeated question, or a distant look that lingers longer than usual. This is the third sign in subtle cognitive confusion and emotional withdrawal. And it's perhaps one of the hardest to witness, because while weight loss and fatigue affect how someone moves through the world, this affects how they connect to it. And to you, you might notice your loved one lose their train of thought more often. They might forget names, misplace familiar objects, or struggle to follow conversations. At first, it might seem like ordinary aging, but as days stretch into weeks, it becomes more frequent, more disorienting for them and for you. You start to see their mind dim in moments that once lit them up. Their jokes come slower, their reactions feel delayed, their expressions grow quieter, less animated. It's not just forgetfulness. It's a soft retreat of the mind, and just as their body once conserved energy by resting, their mind now begins to conserve its emotional and cognitive efforts. Social situations become tiring. The background noise of a dinner gathering becomes overwhelming. Conversations they once enjoyed now feel like too much to process. So they begin to withdraw. Not because they don't care, but because their brain can no longer carry the weight of connection in the same way. Imagine the frustration of knowing you once could engage, recall, respond, and now struggling to hold a thread of thought. It's a quiet grief they carry, even if they can't always name it. And so they start to choose stillness, Silence. Familiar spaces where they don't have to pretend they're keeping up as loved ones. This can feel like a painful kind of fading, like losing them before they're truly gone. But this is not a time for panic or correction. This is a time for presence. When your loved one begins to retreat into themselves, don't chase them with questions or reminders. Meet them where they are. Sit with them in the quiet. Speak slowly. Offer gentle affirmations, not tests. A hand on theirs. A smile that says, "You don't need to be anything, but here with me." Cognitive changes are not always linear. Some days may feel like a return to clarity. Others like they've slipped a little further away. But behind it all is still the person you love. Still present. Still worthy of dignity, patience, and compassion. This stage, like the last calls for letting go, not of your connection, but of expectations. It invites us to embrace a new kind of closeness. One that isn't built on conversation or memory, but on shared presence, on trust, on love that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. Because when their mind begins to wander, your presence becomes their anchor, and that is a gift beyond measure. Sign number 4. Frequent infections and slow healing. As the mind begins to fade into softer spaces, something else begins to quietly shift beneath the surface, the body's defenses. While the cognitive changes might be visible in forgotten names or withdrawn glances, this next sign is often hidden in plain sight. A weakened immune system. Subtle at first, but then it becomes clear your loved one is getting sick more often, staying sick longer, and healing more slowly from even the smallest of wounds. It may start with a cough that lingers for weeks, or a small scratch that just won't close. Maybe it's a low-grade fever that comes and goes without explanation. These aren't just coincidences or minor setbacks. They're messages. The body, now conserving its final reserves, begins letting go of what it once fought so hard to protect. The immune system, once a silent guardian, grows quiet, and in its silence, infections slip in more easily. Pneumonia, urinary tract infections, skin conditions, mouth sores. What once would have passed with rest and a few days now turns into a long recovery or none at all. You might notice they seem more confused when less alert than you'd expect. This isn't just the infection talking. It's their body's struggle to respond. For seniors, infections often don't look like they used to. Instead of high fevers or obvious symptoms, they show up as disorientation, a sudden drop in appetite, or an unusual sleepiness. These are the early warnings, and they matter. Wounds tell the same story. A bruise that spreads, a blister that turns red and swollen. Pressure sores forming in places they once sat without pain. It's not just skin, it's circulation. It's oxygen. It's the body gradually stepping back from its repairs. And in that space between recognizing the symptoms and rushing for a solution, there comes a deeper question. Is the goal still to fix, or is it now to comfort? It's a question many families wrestle with. The instinct is to fight. One more hospital visit, one more antibiotic, one more round of treatment. But there comes a point when even medicine has limits, when every needle, every test, every disruption steals more peace than it brings healing. That's when the focus begins to shift from curing to caring, from aggressive treatments to gentler ones. Hydration becomes sacred. Clean skin becomes essential. Warmth, rest, and presence become the most powerful medicine of all. This stage asks something tender of us to love without needing to fix. To sit with our loved one, not just in their strength, but in their fragility. To understand that healing doesn't always mean recovery. Sometimes it means peace. Relief, safety, a soft place to land. So when you see these signs, when infections become frequent and recovery becomes slow, it's not a signal to panic. It's a signal to lean in, to make comfort the priority, to make dignity the goal. Because when the body begins to surrender, our greatest act of love is not to resist it, but to walk beside it, hand in hand. Sign of 5, major changes in breathing or circulation. As the body's ability to fight fades and healing becomes slower, another quieter shift begins, one that is often felt before it's fully understood. The breath changes. The rhythm of life itself begins to slow. What once was automatic inhale, exhale now becomes unpredictable, sometimes shallow, sometimes labored, sometimes interrupted by long, uneasy pauses that make you hold your own breath, waiting for the next one to come. It is one of the most intimate and tender signs that the body is drawing inward, redirecting its energy to only the essentials. Blood no longer flows as freely to the edges. Hands, feet, ears, and nose begin to feel cold to the touch. A soft bluish hue may appear around the fingers, the toes, not because the room is cold, but because the heart slowly but surely is saving its strength for the center. It's in these moments that families often feel the deepest helplessness. You want to fix it, you want to do something, anything, but this is not a problem to be solved. It is a transition to be understood, and understanding it allows you to love more freely without fear. Breathing patterns may shift dramatically. Your loved one may suddenly gasp for air, then go quiet. Or they may breathe in a slow, shallow rhythm that seems almost too soft to notice. Some experience what's known as Cheney-Stokes respiration, a pattern of deep breaths followed by periods of stillness. It can be unsettling to witness, but it is not pain. It is not distress. It is the body finding its way towards stillness. Even something as simple as lying flat can become uncomfortable. Gravity no longer helps. It hinders. You might notice them propping themselves up with pillows or preferring to sleep in a recliner just to ease the burden of breath. What was once subconscious becomes conscious, and what once felt simple now takes effort. But there are things we can do not to reverse, but to ease. A cool room, a humidifier, gentle sips of water, soft background music, or a calm voice reading aloud. These are not cures, but they are comforts. And in these final stages, comfort becomes the most powerful gift we can offer. Perhaps the most important thing to remember is this: when breathing changes, it is not always a call for emergency. It is often a call for presence. To sit close, to hold a hand, to say what needs to be said, because in those final days or hours, your loved one may not respond with words, but they feel everything. Your presence, your love, your calm. So when the breath changes, don't panic. Slow down with them. Let your breath match theirs. Let your heart speak, even when words cannot, because as the body releases, the soul prepares, and in that sacred space between breaths, there is room for something eternal. Peace, the final stage of life, is something we often avoid talking about until it's suddenly at our doorstep. But when we begin to see it not as something to fear, but as something to prepare for with tenderness and courage, everything changes. The weight loss, the fatigue, the quiet withdrawal, the slow healing, the altered breath, they're not just symptoms. They're signals, gentle markers that the body is winding down and the soul is preparing for peace. Yes, these signs can be hard to witness. They can stir grief before the goodbye even comes, but they also offer something powerful. Time to honor the person in front of you. Time to listen, to comfort, to say what matters most. In recognizing these early changes, we're not giving up. We're showing up fully lovingly, with eyes open and heart steady. And that may be the most sacred gift of all. Because at the end, what your loved one needs isn't a cure. It's you, your presence, your gentleness, your willingness to walk beside them without needing to fix what can't be fixed. In the soft space between life and letting go, dignity and love matter more than anything. If this video helped you feel more prepared, more aware, or even just a little less alone, please consider subscribing to this channel. Here we share thoughtful, compassionate insights to help you navigate aging caregiving and the quiet truths that come with life's most important moments. Click subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos that offer clarity, comfort, and connection when you need them most. You're not alone. We're here walking this journey with you.